Welcome back to Shortstop Jackson on Real Estate and Money here on YouTube. Thank you for joining me. This episode we're going to talk about evicting a bad tenant. And there's not much worse things as a property manager than a tenant from hell. And there's not much that's harder than evicting that tenant. The worst possible tenants are these tenants that really know the laws and they know the regulations and they know exactly how to use all of those things on their side to stay in your property the maximum amount of time without paying and abuse you and your property in the process, and then they'll go find a new target when they're done with you. But the difference between a good property manager and a bad property manager could be months. It could be a good property manager that knows how to deal with these people could actually have those people out of the property maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months faster than someone who's inexperienced, who doesn't know what they're doing and doesn't know how to do it and doesn't know how to complete the process. So it is a extremely valuable tool and process that you need to learn about. You need to be prepared for. You should never have to use it, but you need to be ready for the day that you have that tenant that's smarter than you about what you can do to evict them. So here we go. We're going to talk about that tenant from hell. First of all, you know why you want to evict this tenant. 9 times out of 10, it's because they haven't paid their rent. And maybe they're even 2 months late on rent, maybe even 3 months late on the rent. And if they're 3 months late on the rent and you haven't started evicting them, shame on you. This is going to go down in the record books of teaching you the class on what not to do as a property manager. So it's really important that you never let your tenants get very far behind on the rent, because once they're very far behind on the rent, they cannot catch back up. They can't do it. There's no possible way they're going to pay 2 or 3 months of rent. Maybe they're half a month late. Maybe they're even a month late, and you add a couple $100 every month to make up for that. But if you get them 2-3 months late in rent and they haven't paid, they're not going to pay. And there's just no way for them to pay. So now their strategy is, how much longer can I stay in this property without having to go on the streets and figure out where I'm going to live next? And your job is, how quickly can I get them in the streets and out of my house? So it's really becomes a competition there between you and the tenant. And it can be very dramatic and it can be quite aggressive on both sides. So it's important for you to know the legal side of things and also to know what you're capable of personally and what you're not capable of. And if you're not capable of getting strong and being aggressive and really challenging this person to get out of your house, then you need to find somebody who can help you, which may be the time for you to hire a property manager. Oftentimes, the time to hire a property manager is when you have the tenant that you need to evict. You go and you find the property manager that can do the eviction and you say, great, I want you to find my next tenant. I'm done with this. I want you to manage my property. And they're like, okay, that's what I'm good at. That's what I do. I don't take any of it personal. I'm happy to file the paperwork. I know exactly how to deal with this and I'll take care of it. And you say, wow, it only costs me money and I still get to have a life. So sometimes it's worth it to hire someone to do the eviction, especially if you're out of state or you don't have time to do all the processes that are necessary to have a proper eviction. Anyways, you already know why you want to have this tenant evicted. If it's not about rent, then it's usually some other, maybe you have 6 units or 12 units or 20 units and they're just making a mess of the properties around there, or maybe there's a noise problem, maybe there's a domestic abuse problem, maybe there's kid problem, they got 7 kids running all over the place, maybe there could be a variety of things. But it's important that you really plan a strategy on how you're going to do this eviction, and really like plot it out, even in writing for yourself, and be clear about what you're doing. And that might be the time to go on YouTube and do some research, or talk to some other property managers about some of the issues that you're worried about how you're going to handle them. Because a lot of people are going to make you go through all those processes, including court, before you actually get your property back. It's very, very rare that tenant is going to show up in the courthouse on the day of the hearing if they haven't paid the rent. Very rare. 9 out of 10 times they're not going to show up. The judge is going to say, he's going to file the eviction, and they're already either packing or left the day before, or possibly there could be a situation, the guy's in prison, the guy's in the hospital, something happened and they're not able to even move their things, and you're going to have to pack up their stuff and theoretically put it out on the curb with the sheriff. I've only had that happen maybe once, but 9 times out of 10, they're going to leave you some trash behind, and they may leave you some furniture behind, way more things than you want to be left behind. But 9 times out of 10, they're going to go away, and that's the best blessing of all. It's really important as you're going through this process to also plan how you're going to, I'll use the word lock them out. Once you have the eviction, or even if you don't have the eviction, you have to have a plan. But I think you need to have the strategy of the day you're going to lock them out, so they won't be able to get back into the house at all. And that means changing the locks. Sometimes, they're going to break the window and get in there anyways because they still have their bicycle or their, whatever, their personal items are left inside. So ideally, if you're going to do this lock them out strategy, it's good if you can leave their things that they would break in to get somewhere in the doorway, somewhere right outside the door, in the back, somehow, maybe in the side garage, leave the garage door half open, something like that, so that they don't do damage to your house. They grab their things and they leave. But if you leave their things that they value inside the house and you lock them out, they're going to break their way in with a crowbar, with a brick. Somehow they're going in there, they're going to get their stuff. So if you can get their stuff compacted and safely somewhere for them to pick up, oftentimes they'll pick them up and they'll go. I personally take it very personal when someone doesn't pay me rent and someone doesn't want to work with me. I take it very personal as a landlord, because this is my living, this is my work, and I need that money to pay my bills. So I am very aggressive with them. Not physically aggressive with my speech and my actions. And I try really never to make a threat to them. I try to really just tell them what I'm going to do. And if I'm not really prepared to do it, I don't want to say I'm going to do it. So if I say to them, when you come back from work tomorrow and your things are sitting outside the front door and the doors are locked, you'll know that I did what I said I was going to do. And again, this is all turning up the pressure on them to go away. And most people, when things get to the point where you're really communicating at the end, they are already looking for the next place. They've already gone around and found where they're going to move to, or they've told their parents, I'm coming back, I'm putting my stuff in the garage, or they're moving into the car. They already have some kind of plans, hopefully. And it's just a question of which day it's actually going to happen where you're going to push them out and they're going to run away. It's really important also at this point that you protect your property. So you need to take a lot of pictures. If there's a way to actually install some kind of a video camera, or maybe there's a neighbor that you're friends with that you could ask them to keep an eye on the place, take a few pictures. I always try and get the phone number of the neighbors and try and have some kind of a relationship with the neighbor where I could call the neighbor and say, what's happening? Did the guy leave? And because neighbors usually know what's going on too. And especially the neighbor oftentimes might be very happy to see your tenant leave. So you got to kind of weigh those situations and see who's your friend and who's on your team about wanting this person out of the property. And if they're friends with the neighbor, then obviously you're not gonna you're not gonna do well there. That the neighbor is going to be calling you names along with the tenant. So it's important for you to kind of have a sense about who they're friendly with and who might help you be some eyes on what's happening there. If you live in the area and you can do drive-bys, this is great, and you can watch and see what's happening yourself and kind of know from when the person goes to work and the family and the situation. You can see, all the garbage is outside. You see boxes. You see evidence of things starting to happen. Someone's moving or something like that. I personally kind of consider this tail end of an eviction to be kind of guerrilla warfare. And when I say it that way, I mean that we need to strengthen ourselves as landlords and really feel strong about, this is my property and this person hasn't paid and I have my rights to have my property back. And I'll tell you what I've done in the past, and what I will, sometimes I may not even threaten to do it, but what I've done is I would shut off the water, and I will also, in an extreme situation, probably the last resort, is I would turn off the electricity. Now, I don't mean call the electric company and say, please turn off the electricity, because the electric is probably in your tenant's name. I mean, go to the breaker panel where the electricity comes into the house and remove the breaker panel, not the whole panel, but remove a part of it so that they cannot even turn on the electricity. And believe me, if a house doesn't have electricity and it doesn't have water, it's just a question of a day or 2 or 3 until they're leaving. They're not going to stay in a property without electricity, without water, especially if they know that there's a landlord watching them and a landlord eviction is coming. You got to see where you're at. Legally, you probably don't have the rights to turn off the water or the electricity. But sometimes I find that people will move and go away, and you won't have to do these court situations. Court situations take the longest, cost the most amount of money, and you need to know what that process is, and you need to know who you're dealing with. But 9 times out of 10, you're never going to go to any of these places. I just want you to realize that there is the possibility that you could shut off the water and that you could shut off the electricity. I'm not recommending it. It's not for everyone, but it is a possible last resort option. Okay, and lastly, the day that they leave, the disaster of things behind, and all of the garbage and all of the dog food and ants and everything that they left behind, it's time to celebrate, because now you have your property back and you can clean it up and find a new tenant that's going to pay your rent. So don't forget to celebrate. Don't take all of, in a month or 2, it's all going to go away. It's going to be past and you're going to survive it. So don't get too upset and dramatic with all of the moment-to-moment details of an eviction. And again, if you don't have the stomach for some of these things, it's the time to hire a property manager to deal with it. I hope you liked some of the ideas I had here. Please push the like button. Please subscribe. I'll continue to bring you videos that I think will be helpful to you as a landlord. Have a great day. Thank you.